Standing here, just to the south of the River Thames, on the Thames Path, and looking towards Blackfriars Bridge, I'm trying to imagine just for a moment what I would see from here back in the 1870s. The skyline would be different for a start. Blackfriars Station and the railway bridge would have been here. Mind you, these days, only the pillars to the old bridge remain. I would also see the brand new Blackfriars Road Bridge, all spick and span, with its 5 ornate wrought iron bridge sections sitting on their stone pillars. Moving a few hundred yards due north, we would come to Ludgate Circus, and to the east would have been Ludgate Hill, going up to St Paul's. Mind you, in the 1870s, there would have been a railway viaduct crossing the road at the foot of the hill. And to the west of us, we would see Fleet Street. Passing on into Fleet Street, and quickly left again, we come to the rather grand-sounding St Bride's Avenue, which is really little more than an alleyway, and come across St Bride's Church. This had been rebuilt to a Christopher Wren design, costing £11,430. The steeple, at 226 feet, is the second tallest of Christopher Wren's churches, with only St Paul's Cathedral being taller. St Bride's Church became notorious following a confrontation many years ago between Samuel Pepys, you know, the one with the diary, and the then vicar Alexander Reed, all because Pepys wanted to move the current occupants of the cemetery sideways so that he could bury his brother Tom. In the end, Pepys bribed the gravediggers to wriggle the other occupants sideways so the family could lay their Tom to rest in his chosen cemetery. This incident highlights a growing problem faced by many of London's churches at the time of how and where to bury all the local residents come their sell-by date. The common practice to solve this problem was to bury the newer occupants of the cemetery immediately on top of the existing residents, so at least they could fit everybody in. This practice then required the height of the cemetery's perimeter walls to be raised on a regular basis to the new level of the cemetery surface, so as to contain all the occupants. Look at this cemetery level compared with the adjacent street. I'll leave you to judge where the original level of the boundary wall would have been. In the end, this practice led to a new burial act, which forbade the graves from being exhumed for reuse, or stacked, so to speak, as they could only safely go so high above the street level. With this overcrowding of the cemeteries in London, and a Victorian population exploding from 1 to 7 million residents, something desperately needed to be done. In the end, it was decided that 7 new sites, named the Magnificent Seven, would be selected on the periphery of London and purchased as new cemeteries, one of which was the 17-acre site at Highgate, bought for £3,500. It was set up and run by a private corporation, the London Cemetery Company, and today has 170,000 residents in 53,000 tombs, which led me to suspect there would probably be standing room only. When I visited the cemetery, I was surprised at just how neglected, overgrown, and atmospheric it is there today. The cemetery, set high on a south-facing hill overlooking London, once opened, became the most sought-after burial spot in the capital. and the ever fashion-conscious Victorians who wouldn't be seen dead anywhere else. In the 1950s, the cemetery suffered a severe downturn in popularity, along with ever-rising costs. Eventually, the private company announced that it was bankrupt in 1960 and left the cemetery abandoned amidst a financial scandal. Over the years that followed, as Mother Nature gradually took over, it quickly established itself as an unofficial nature reserve. In 1975, a restoration project set up by the voluntary Friends of Highgate Cemetery went some way to reversing the neglect of the previous decades, to restore the Grade 1 heritage site to a semblance of its former glory. When you visit the cemetery today and pay your entrance fee to the east side, you are handed a small information sheet with a map showing who is who and where they are buried. I never intended showing you lots of famous tombs, but it didn't seem appropriate to leave without mentioning just one. Probably the most famous interment in the east side of Highgate Cemetery is the philosopher Karl Marx, who died in 1883. To draw my tale to an end, I will read from a quote I found about a ghost of a woman seen regularly in the cemetery. Her long grey hair blows in the breeze as she darts from grave to grave, looking for the final resting place of the children she murdered. Her anguished face betrays her guilty secret. But the tragedy is, she will never locate her little ones.